In today's video, I'll be going over the 3 new ships that are being added into the Lunar New Year event. This event will be starting on February 11th for NA and EU and Asia on the 12th. Now, the 3 new ships that are being added is going to be the Yimeng, as you can see here, the Tier 9 Pan-Asia Battleship. And for the next one, it's going to be the Messina, which is a Tier 9 Italian cruiser, as you can see here. And finally, the Tier 10 Independencia, which is the first Pan-Asia aircraft carrier. So I'll be going over all 3 of these ships in today's video with timestamps in the description. I'll be going over their strengths and weaknesses, gameplay will be shown, of course, as well as their builds and my overall impressions of the ships. At the end of the video, I'll be giving my overall impressions or overall thoughts on the 3 ships, as well as how to obtain them and when they'll be returning back into World of Warships after the event, because they did announce that to us CC, so I'll be giving that information at the end of the day's video. So let's get started. The first ship we're talking about is going to be the Yimeng. Now this thing is a Tier 9 Pan-Asia BB that has 12 356mm guns and a very unique defense consumable, which I'll be talking about in a little bit. It's fairly tanky, using a flat hull and a long-acting repair party. Now it does have not the best guns, but you do get improved secondaries, which does help to compensate for this. And when I say tanky, this thing is incredibly tanky against all damage. And when I'm talking about this consumable, it has a new consumable called the Aerial and Torpedo Defense Systems, which I'll be showing an example of momentarily in this battle. Now, this makes it where you take 70% less damage while this consumable is active. And it lasts for 5 seconds, and it has a cooldown of over 2 minutes. So it's not a very long one, but it does reduce how much damage you take from torpedoes for that 5 seconds. So as you'll be seeing in the example, you'll be normally a salvo that would kill you won't kill you, which is very useful to help you stay alive in a match and just be overall tanky. It helps you be able to be more aggressive and push as well. For the heavy repair party teams, it makes it where you have a very long heal, which allows you to heal about 49 seconds when you build into it, and it lets you heal about 22,000 damage per heal, which is really good. Now, the long-acting heal does help you kind of mitigate fire damage or like multiple fires or flooding damage if you do it, but if you take too much damage, then yeah, you're not going to last too long. But with that flat armor, it's going to make you where you're extremely tanky, where you have that 32mm bow armor, and bow and aft, and you have that 40mm deck armor with the Citadel side plating of 370. So you do have to be careful of that, because if you're not, you're going to get Citadel. So don't show too much broadside in this thing, or you'll be a sitting duck. And when I say these guns are mediocre, they're 356s, right? They're not the biggest caliber, and they also have a long reload of about 26 seconds. And the HE and AP damage with that caliber, it's not the best. So normally when I play this thing, I'm using HE a lot of the time to start fires. It does make it where you're able to get more damage out of the guns. And normally when someone's about 10 kilometers or in, I'll start using more AP shells when they're showing their side or broadside to be able to get good damage out of the guns. And a lot of the time, you're just going to be sitting bow in or angled to allow your secondaries to go off. Because these secondaries, they do have an 11.3 kilometer range. And they are pretty accurate when they're inside of this range as well. But the thing is that the secondary angles themselves are not the best. So what I normally do is I'll sit bow in or slightly angled to the battleships. And if there's like a cruiser or destroyer on my side, I'll show my secondaries a little bit more on the side to allow them to fire while I sit bow in to the main threat and let my secondaries melt the destroyer or cruisers on my side, where if they do tort me, I can use that aerial and torpedo defense systems to take way less damage from their torpedo run and just nuke them with these secondaries. Because these secondaries do have 152mm guns, and they have a 25mm pen, so they're really good at melting destroyers and cruisers alike and starting fires with a 12% fire chance on them. But overall, this ship excels at bowing playstyle, being very tanky, having a flat hull, as well as having that very long heal, which makes you last a very long time in the battle. Now, with this really long heal also comes a very long cooldown of about a minute and a half. This makes it where you kind of have to plan or build into the heal to be able to get it back quicker. So I have improved repair party readiness, which allows you to get your heal back quicker. This is very useful into getting an extra heal as well when you take 2 million potential damage, which is very easy in this ship. I, on average, tank about 3 or 4 million in this thing. You don't want to be like overly aggressive, but you also don't want to be overly passive. You want to be able to tank damage so you can sit bow win. One weakness, though, I did run into while playing this thing is the weakness to Columbos. Yeah, so Columbos and Sap still melt this thing, so you do have to sit directly bow into a Columbo and you won't take as much damage. But I was kind of testing to see if I showed a little bit aside how much it would take. And yeah, Columbo still decks you just like it does for every other ship. So when you see a Columbo, just sit perfectly bow into it and you'll be okay. Just don't show it any side and you'll be perfectly fine. But a lot of the time, you're just sitting bow win. You're not going to be trying to shoot all three of your turrets, because if you do, you're showing a lot of your broadside. The only time you'll be doing that is when you're either kiting or when you're pushing in like long distance and you're using just long distance shooting to where you're able to easily turn in or slow down the dodge incoming salvos so you don't get, dev struck from showing your citadel. Also with the Yimeng, it does really well with the legendary commander, the Zheng Bing. Zheng Bing, he has a special talent where it makes it where every 1.5 million potential damage he takes, it makes him have 6.5% faster consumable preparation time and reload time for those consumables, which means that since the ship does rack up a lot of potential damage, you're going to be able to get back your heals back faster, your damage control party back faster, and the torpedo protection consumable faster as well. So it's really easy to get that prot, so I think it's very useful to have it, as well as the build that I recommend uses the 2 skills he has for enhanced for battleships. So I'll be showing that build momentarily whenever I'm done showcasing the gameplay. But overall, I think that the Yimeng is a lot of fun to play. It's a fun Pan-Asia Secondary Battleship that really does well bow win playstyle. You're able to sit bow win, reverse if you have to being pushed, or if you are pushing, you can push in with your team, get those secondaries off of your sides, or you sit bow into the main threat. And if you're about to get dev struck by torpedoes, pop that torpedo protection consumable and bam, you're not dead. One main thing you do have to be worried about, though, is the damage control party. You do have to time that where you're not just wasting it, because if you know you are going to be taking torpedoes, it's better just to let those fires burn, since you do build into fire. You do slightly build into fire protection, so they don't last as long. If you try to DCP all your fires all the time, as well as with the heal, you need to make sure that you're popping that heal early on when you're taking damage. So just such a long heal, you need to make sure you pop it early. So say you're at about 10,000 damage that you can heal, right? You want to pop that heal then and not when you're at max, because you got to imagine that during that whole 50 seconds that the heal's going on, you're going to be taking at least another 12k to where you're maxing out your heal. So you want to be able to use your heal again sooner, so you need to pop that heal early enough to where you know you're going to be taking a lot of damage during that time period to where it's going to be worth it. So normally I pop it around 8 to 10k depending upon how much fire I'm taking. If I'm being shot by a lot of ships, I'll probably pop it at like 5k heals that I can do. If it's not that many, then I'll probably pop it at like 8 or 10, just depending upon what I'm facing is when I'll pop the heal to make sure that I'm able to utilize my heals to their fullest and get them back as soon as possible. Okay, so this is the Yimeng in the port. So let's take a look at this ship in the port. So as you can see, it is a flat hull. So let's just go around here. All right, the ship does look very tasty, very good, delicious. So let's take a look at the armor. So the armor here has 32 millimeter bow, little armor section here of 200 millimeters. Aft section is going to be the same, 32 millimeters, armor section 200. The citadel protection is 200 for the upper part, 370 here and 290 here. Deck armor is going to be 40 millimeters at this section, 50mm here at this section. So not as tanky here, but back here it is a little bit more tanky, which is nice. And the armor on this side here is also 40. This is going to be a giant EP shell catcher here. That's why I say kiting isn't as good, because if shells go anywhere in this section here, it's going to be immediate pen damage, and you're going to be taking a lot of damage. So let's look at this Citadel section real quick. This is the Citadel here. Yeah, as you can see, it does have an exposed Citadel. So you don't want to show your broadside, or you'll be taking a lot of damage. So don't do that, or you will be death-struck. So yeah, definitely don't do that. This ship has a maximum of 77,000 HP, 28% torpedo protection. Guns are 356s with a 26-second reload with this build. Secondaries, you do get a lot of them, but the angles aren't the best, which is why I'm saying, like, you do want to build in secondaries, but you need to make sure you angle properly, or you're not going to be able to use them properly. But this build's a 4.9-second reload. Yep, I just want to make sure I did that right. For them with an 18.6-kilometer range for the guns. Airstrikes are normal. They're good. Anti-air, like, it's actually not bad. The flak is actually pretty decent, and the continuous anti-air isn't bad either. It's just close range. Like, overall, it's just, like, it's not bad. It's good anti-air for a tier 9. Maneuverability, not the fastest. 30.5. It's pretty average to good for the tier. 880 meter turning radius. That's actually not bad. It's actually pretty good for the tier for a battleship this size. 13.3 rudder shift is also okay as well. Concealment, you're spotted from the moon, so I don't really recommend building into concealment. But overall, I think the stats are pretty good on this ship. I think it's a lot of fun to play. Now let's go over the build. Now the build of this ship as follows. I build into the damage control party to help reduce how long I'm on fires or reduce the likelihood of flooding as well. So I built the damage control party. This gives it to 23.1 seconds with a 73-second cooldown, which is really nice. The damage control systems here reduces your flooding and fire chance. That's also really nice. Secondaries here in the third slot for secondaries, which you get your secondaries out to 11.3 kilometers, which is very important. The fourth slot, I do damage control party to reduce how long the fires and flooding last. This is very important to help since you're more of a bow and tanker. This allows you to tank more since you're taking less damage from them over time, which is really nice. Damage concealment is going to be in the fifth slot, of course. It's mostly to make it where you have the enemy has slightly worse dispersion when aiming at you. So that's the reason why. And finally, for the sixth slot, it's going to be main battery. Now, the reason why I built this instead of for secondaries is because even though the guns aren't the best, they still can do decent damage. So I still think it's worth building into them. If you think otherwise, you want to use secondaries where you can do that. But I recommend reload here for the modules. For the commander itself, this is the build that I do, and I'll go over it in a step-by-step from the 10-point build to 14, 18, and 21, of course, right? So, starting off, I have, of course, the legendary commander here. You don't have to use him. You can use another commander if you like, but I do like using this commander because of this unique skill here, which makes it where when you take 1.5 million damage, it makes it where you get your consumables back 6.5% faster. This includes your heals, your damage control party, as well as the torpedo protection consumable, which is very important. And as well as you're able to get this skill really quick, since this thing does tank a lot of damage. So I do recommend running this commander on him if you do. And since it is a premium, you can switch him onto here pretty easily. So I do recommend that. For the first skill, it's going to be Emergency Repair Specialist. Since this is an enhanced skill, normally it's 3%. With him, it's 4%. So that little percent difference the 4% does matter with how long the cooldown is for the heal. So I do recommend using this as the first one. Second one's going to be Vigilance. This increases your torpedo protection, damage reduction, as well as makes you see the torpedoes longer away due to the torpedo acquisition range. This stacks with the aerial and torpedo defense systems here, so it does stack with it. So overall, the higher torpedo protection you have, the less damage a torpedo would do, which means that when that thing activates, it's going to do less damage to you overall. So very important to run that. So it just stacks, so it's very important. All right, so the next skill you're going to take is going to be for secondary. So it's going to be long-range secondary battery shells, which makes your range longer range. And that's going to be your 6-point build right there. After that, I would recommend doing fire prevention first. The main reason for that is because it's gonna, like, you're gonna catch on fire a lot in this thing since you're gonna be bound wind tanking. So I recommend taking fire prevention first. After that, you can build into manual secondary batteries second. So this is gonna be your 14-point build right here. After that, you're going to be taking Emergency Repair Expert to get that extra heal, the slightly longer duration heal, as well as making your damage control party slightly longer. So this is going to be your 18-point build. And then finally, your 21-point build is going to be the Improved Repair Party Readiness. Now, if you think that you're not going to be using all 3 of your heals that are available, to where you're only using the 3 and you don't need a 4th one, then I'd recommend taking Adrenaline Rush or the Basic Survivability skill. You can take either one or the other. If you want more DPM, then Adrenaline Rush. If you want a little bit more tankiness without the heal, then I'll say Basic Survivability. And that's going to be your 21-point build for the Yimeng. So let's move on to the second ship in this review. The next ship in this list is going to be the Messina. So the Messina is the first Italian cruiser to have a 6-kilometer range hydro, as well as having exhaust smoke, a fighter, torpedoes, sap-only guns, a heal, and a lot of other goodies as well. Now this thing has a little bit of armor. It has a 25mm bow and aft with about 50,000 HP, so it has a lot of HP. And the guns are 9 152mm guns. And it does have a very nice smoke firing penalty of range of 7.7 kilometers, which means that you can be pretty aggressive with this thing using its smoke to do a lot of damage. So you can use it to push up, push destroyers out with the hydro, or keep it perma-spotted and wait to shoot your guns until they're low enough health, and then you can nuke them. Or if they're low enough, or you're just alone, they don't have any support, the destroyers don't, then you can just gun them down yourself. And you don't even have to wait. You can just run them down, because this thing is incredibly fast. It has a 38.9 knot speed, a 680 meter turning radius, which is really good, with a 10.5 second rudder shift. This thing is a speedboat. Even though it doesn't have an engine boost of any kind, this thing accelerates incredibly fast. So I'll definitely be recommending you building propulsion modification in the 4th slot for this ship, just because of how fast it is. And with how nice that turning radius is, it allows you to dodge and weave torpedoes really well, which makes you very maneuverable. So, and the guns, I like a lot. The guns are very accurate with a, not the fastest reload, they're 7.9 seconds, but I think they do the job well. They do really good at hitting destroyers, battleships, cruisers, you name it, they do a lot of damage. But since they are sap rounds only, they do have that weakness of anything that is bow in or showing their butt, you're not going to be doing a lot of damage to it. So it does have that downside. Also, it does have the downside of not having a lot of armor. So if you show your broadside to a battleship or a cruiser, you'll be taking a lot of damage and you'll be going back to port. So you have to be careful of that. This thing actually has really hard hitting torp, surprisingly. They do 20,000 damage. The speed on them is 72 knots, which is okay, and they're about an 8-kilometer range, which means that you can use these things to do drive-bys, and you can use this when you're in smoke, or if you're just bow into them and you just turn and use your broadside, and then you just bam, you slap them with your torps before you die. You can do that. And they get 4 torpedoes per rack, and you get 1 per side, and they do 20,000 damage, which is a lot of damage. But it is a lot of fun to use those torpedoes on this thing, so I definitely recommend it. But overall, this ship is definitely a lot of fun to play. If you like playing the Gonzaga, the playstyle is going to be very similar, just more of like a heavy cruiser version of the Gonzaga. Even though the guns are a little bit bigger on this ship, the way they play is very, very similar. This just has hydro. It doesn't have an engine boost, and the gun range is 16.8 kilometers on the Messina. It's not the best range, but with how good your concealment is at 11.3 kilometers, It's definitely meant to be played more middle range on this thing or close when you have that exhaust smoke. And when you put Cincinnati on this ship, where he has the enhanced, he has the unique skill where concealed reserves. It means that once per battle, when you hit 100, you hit an enemy ship 100 times the main battery shells. And this is any number. As long as you get 100 shell hits in the match, you get 10% longer action time for your consumables. This includes the ship's damage control party, the heals, the fighters, the smoke, and the hydro. This is very important for how Cincinnati's played on this ship, so I highly recommend putting it on there. And when you get a kill, you get an 8% boost to your main battery firing range, which isn't really hard to do in this ship since you can kind of smoke up and shoot at any time and just steal a kill, and then you get a kill, you get extra range. Also, if you get Confederate while having Cincinnati, you get a 15% reload time boost to your guns. And yeah, which is really, really nice. And that's not really hard to get either, since you'll be shooting out a variety of different ships. Confederate will be pretty easy to get on this ship. But when you have all those skills active, it makes this thing a really deadly machine to fight. It's really strong at killing destroyers, pushing them out of the cap. Really good destroyer supporter for your team. So if you want a really strong destroyer supporting cruiser, or one that you can be a little bit more farmy if you want, focus more on farming battleships and cruisers, play a little bit longer range if you need to. But I think the ship is really fun to play. If you like that, so definitely be a little bit more high skill level due to how squishy the ship can be, but you do get a lot of wiggle room with that 50,000 HP pool, which does help you keep alive in the match longer. If it had like 30,000, and oh yeah, it would be way squishier, but since it does have 50,000 and it also gets the 25mm bow and aft, it does help it keep alive way longer in the match. And for anti-air, yeah, for some reason it actually gets like decent anti-air. I don't know why, but apparently it does. I don't know why. But yeah, so for some reason, it's one of the first Italians to actually get decent anti-air. The only problem with it is that it's 5.2 kilometer anti-air and not 5.8, so they do get closer to you, but your anti-air is actually pretty decent on this thing. As well as having a fighter as well, it does help protect you from incoming CV attacks. Tier 8, they'll probably get one attack on you, and you'll probably do a lot of damage to your squads. Tier 10s, yeah, they'll definitely still hurt you in super ships. Yeah, good luck. Yeah, good luck with that. Have fun with that. But yeah, so that's the Messina gameplay. So let's go into looking at the ship itself and about the build of the ship and my overall impressions of it. All right, so this is the Messina in port, as you can see here. Looks very nice indeed. As you can see, it has the name on the side there. Very beautiful ship. Nicely done. Very nice. So let's take a look at the armor. So I was also saying a 25mm bow. It does have a little armor section here of 50mm here, which does help you from getting dev struck when you're bow in. 50mm on the aft, same with the 25mm on the upper bow. Sorry, upper aft. Deck armor is 27, not the tankiest, of course. Side armor is 30mm, and Citadel is 150. So as you can see here, it does have a above water Citadel. So that means that you don't want to show your side, as I was saying, or you don't want to get shot at. So you definitely want to use that really good rudder to be able to be very maneuverable, to dodge incoming fire from battleships and cruisers alike to take less damage. Yeah, you definitely want to be careful not to show too much side, or you'll be getting dev struck and sent back to Speranza. So, for survivability, you have 50,000 HP. Really good amount of HP for the Tier 9 cruiser. I do like that a lot. 19% torpedo protection is also nice as well, since a lot of cruisers do not get that. The guns, there are 9 152mm guns with a 8-second, like 7.9 second reload. I think that the guns themselves are pretty accurate. Yeah, it does get a little bit getting used to, but overall, I think the guns are pretty good on this ship. Secondary battery, yeah, don't really worry about the secondaries, because yeah, just don't worry about that. But yeah, don't worry about that. Torpedoes are 8 kilometer range with a set of 4 per side. with 20,000 damage, 8-kilometer range. These are really good for those close encounters where this thing's going to be doing a lot of. The only real downside of this ship is the fact that you only get 3 smoke screens, so you have to kind of time those really well. So you have to, normally at the start of the match, you can be a little bit more aggro, try to push in with your destroyer, watch out for any radars. If there's a radar, be a little more passive at first, then make your move. Probably try to coordinate with your destroyer to try to pick one off early, and then you have that special 6-kilometer hydro, which allows you to hunt down and kill destroyers while using that exhaust smoke to really throw them for the loop and kind of just run them down and kill them really fast, which is really funny to do. And they'll be raging at their team for not killing them, killing you sooner. You do get a nice heal, normal cruiser heal, which is nice. And of course, you get a fighter, which is nice as well. And then you have a damage control party, a normal one. So yeah, that's pretty normal on this thing. You do get the light cruiser burn rate on this ship, so the fire doesn't last for very long, which is really good, because if it lasted a really long time, it would definitely really suffer on this thing. But overall, I think this ship is a really good smoke farming or mid to long range farming sap thrower. Those are the main strengths. But its downside is the fact that anything that sets bow into it or aft, you're not going to be able to do a lot of damage to it. So that's kind of the main downside of having sap only. If it's perma-spotted all the time, it's going to have a little bit of trouble as well, since it doesn't have the best armor. It is able to get farmed pretty badly if it doesn't have any way to get away from the enemy or being able to escape situations. But it is very fast with 38.9 knot speed, so if you kind of get caught, you can really run away, just go in a straight line, do a little bit of wiggling, and you can do really well doing that. With 11.3 kilometer concealment, it's not the best for what this kind of ship does, but I still think it's decent for what it is. But yeah, so let's go over the build of this ship. So for the ship itself, main armament is in the first slot. Very nice there to help protect your guns and torpedoes. Second one's going to be damage control systems, reduce your flooding and fire chance. Third slot is going to be exhaust smoke. This makes it where you're able to get your smoke up to 58.1 seconds. This is very important with how this ship plays. A lot of the gameplay is in the smoke, so I would definitely say getting this is very important. 4 slots getting propulsion. If you want to try steering gears out, you can. I tried a little bit, and it kind of slows down the acceleration of the ship a lot, which kind of dampers it. But I can definitely see how you can do a lot of steering or juking by just turning really hard left or right using the steering gears can work. You just have to keep above half speed all the time and not just throttle juke. So if you take steering gears, stay above half speed while you're juking with turning, and you'll do great. With propulsion, you can kind of slow down a lot. You can slow down a lot and then speed up to do more dodging. So up to you there. Concealment is really important for of course, your concealment, as well as making the enemy's shells less accurate on you. And then for the 6th slot, it's going to be reload for the guns. Very important. For Cincinnati, you don't have to run Cincinnati. You can use any other commander. But let's go over the build itself. Now, on this ship, I definitely recommend Last Stand. I'm going to recommend Last Stand first, and that's just because you do get your rudder knocked out all the time. Not your engine room, but your rudder. So I definitely recommend getting Last Stand, because if you don't, you're going to be busy just doing spitting in circles like the Bismarck was, and you're just going to get sunk. So I recommend Last Stand first. After that, you're going to do Consumable Enhancement. This makes your consumables last longer. After that, you're going to do Superintendent to get that extra smoke. That's the biggest thing. The extra smoke, so you can get 3. After that is going to be Concealment. So you're able to get your concealment down to 11.3, which is very important. The final thing is going to be Outnumbered. Since you're being very aggressive with this ship a lot of the time, you're going to be inside the range a lot more of the enemy, inside your gun range for Outnumbered. So Outnumbered is going to be procced all the time, which makes your shells more accurate, and it makes you faster, which is the biggest thing. It makes you faster, which makes you be able to dodge shells more, get out of situations faster. So I definitely recommend Outnumbered as your 14-point build. Right? So after this section is done here, you want to do either Adrenaline Rush or survivability expert. I'd recommend Adrenaline Rush first to get extra DPM out of your guns and your torpedoes, as well as your anti-air and your secondaries. It just makes the reload faster on them and stronger. It makes your anti-air stronger while making your main battery guns and torpedoes faster reloading, as well as your ASW for the depth charges. Because this ship does get aerial depth charges, thank God. It gets 7-kilometer range, and they're normal depth charges, aerials, so they're just decent. So really happy with that. So overall, that's going to be your 17-point build. After that, it's going to be survivability expert, which is your 20-point build, and then finally, consumable specialist is going to be your final 21-point build. Now, if you don't want to take survivability expert and you want to take more DPM, you can take heavy HE and SAP instead, which increases your SAP damage by 10%, and your HE shells, of course. And this makes your consummate 15% worse. So you're going to have to rely on more of your smoke. But if you'd rather not take the survivability expert and go more DPM or more damage, you can do the heavy HE and SAP instead. But overall, I'd recommend doing survivability expert to be able to get that extra HP to get to 50,000, which makes you a little more tanky with the ship that you're working with. So that's going to be the Messina. So let's move on to the third ship in this review, and then we can talk about the overall event and then my impressions of all three. All right, so the third ship on this list is going to be the Independencia. Now, the Independencia had a lot of work redone to it, right? So originally it had a combat instruction like the rest of the Pan-American ships did, but they decided to take it off and mess a little bit with the torpedoes. And overall, at first I thought this thing wasn't going to be very good after they did the combat instruction work, but no. They buffed the torpedoes, and it is way stronger than what it was, and I'll explain why. Now, this thing gets 3 airstrikes first, and I'll be talking about the particular order, and I'll be showing gameplay of each. So the first one is going to be the regular HE attack aircraft, which are going to be Tiny Tims. Now, these Tiny Tims are really good for petting battleships and cruisers, right? And you don't get as many rockets, but they do more pen, and they have a really high fire chance with those rockets. So they're more meant to hit cruisers and battleships. And these ones have they regenerate squadron over time. So you start off with 17 on deck with the build, and you get 10 per squadron. The size attacks of being 5, and you get 2 attacks per squadron. So they're really good for going after the cruisers and battleships, like I was saying, or aircraft carriers, and they do a lot of damage. The next ones are going to be torpedo bombers, and these torpedo bombers hit really hard. When I mean really hard, I mean really hard, like FDR level hard torpedoes. And these torpedoes also get the turn radius thing that the FDR does, where it doesn't get affected when it turns. So all you have to do is you just have to, when you are about to do your attack run, you can angle yourself away from an enemy ship with the attack, and then you let the reticle go all the way down for torpedoes, and then you can turn as much as you want, and it's going to be still the really tight reticle of it originally, as if you weren't turning at all, which is insanely strong for these torpedo bombers. It lets you do some crazy maneuvers with them to really just make sure you hit all 8 torpedoes and do massive amount of damage with these torpedoes. The third one is going to be a special squadron. They're the HE attack aircraft, and they get 8 rockets per plane, and you get a total of 7 aircraft in the squadron and 7 per attack, and they get a regenerative time about 81 seconds. And these regenerate over and over again, to where you can just keep launching them over and over again. These are really good for launching first game for scouting, since they are a regenerative squad. They're a special squad, and they just keep coming back over and over again. So you don't have to sacrifice your 2 real squadrons. You can sacrifice this over and over again, do spotting, to hover over destroyers, to hunt them down, or to overall just do a little more scouting, or to start fire. Since it does have a lot of rockets, it gets 8 per aircraft with 8% fire chance. And since you have so many aircraft, you're likely to get a fire with these way more than you would with the Tiny Tims in the first squadron, So it's better if you're trying to start fires or if you're trying to go after more destroyers, because these rockets don't have a lot of pen either. They're 27 millimeters, so they're not as good for hitting heavier targets like battleships and heavy cruisers. They're more meant for light cruisers and more for like destroyer hunting and spotting overall. But no, at first I thought this carrier wasn't going to be good, but I am way wrong on that. This thing is an absolute monster, and it's one of the highest DPM aircraft carriers I have seen in this game. I did a few matches in this thing, and I was averaging over 150,000 damage per match. Like, you can think of the Essex as more of like a support carrier. Well, this is more of just a raw DPM farming machine, where you use the rockets to set fires and just do spotting or covering over destroyers, make sure they die, or attack those. And you do those torpedoes for the big damage. For the torpedoes themselves, you get 18 aircraft on deck with 12 aircraft per squadron. And the size of attack is 4. Now, with this particular stuff for the torpedoes, and these torpedoes do a lot of damage as well. They do 4,500 per torpedo, but you get 2 per plane. You get 2 torpedoes per plane. So that means per attack, it's launching 8 torpedoes. So you can just imagine how much damage it's doing as well. So it's a massive amount of damage for these torpedoes. But overall, what you do is you get the rockets to set fires, right? Since the fighters are really fast, they go top speed of 233 knots, while the torpedo bombers are slower with 179 knots. So you use those attack fighters to get someone to burn their DCP, which allows you to then bring in the torpedo bomber to do massive damage. What I normally like to do is I'll bring in the rocket first game. Maybe I'll go after a battleship, or I'll have a destroyer, which depending upon the match, and then I'll bring in the torpedo bomber if they DCP to do massive amounts of damage to them and try to get a permaflood out of them with those torpedoes. Because when you do that, oh my god, it does so much damage, and it's just so beautiful to watch doing those just massive salvos. And even though I don't like to play carriers, it's just ridiculous how hard those torpedoes do hurt on this CV. It's essentially like FDR torpedoes, but on a Pan-American carrier. Now, this thing overall is, I think it's a really strong carrier. If you just want to do raw damage, placing some fighters here and there for team support, you can do that as well, but your main focus is doing raw damage. You do have a good consumables as well as 11.4 kilometers for the carrier, so you can be a little bit more aggro in your positioning to be able to get your attacks off more. So you can be a little bit more aggressive in your positioning a little bit. If you're on the winning side, then yeah, definitely place yourself over there and be a little bit more forward. You can definitely do that and do a lot of damage that way. For the torpedo bombers, a little trick that I would say to do it is make sure you go when you have your heal available. Because again, these torpedo bombers, they have a very long preparation time for each of their planes. It makes it where if you lose a torpedo bomber, it's going to take so long to get it back. So I don't really recommend you try going in an area that has a lot of anti-air unless you have a heal available. Make sure to knock one of your squadrons off at the start, so do one attack to make sure you're saving more planes just in case. But always have a heal available, and once you enter the attack run, enter it further away from the anti-air, so you're taking less damage as you're going in, so you're below the water, so you're taking less flak damage. It makes it where you're a little bit more tanky plane-wise, and it helps you save HP. And when you're right near the end or the middle of the run where you're just about to do the torps, then you prop the heal so that your planes are healing and then leaving to where you're not going to be losing that many planes at all, which is really nice. And also try to go for lone targets or using islands to your advantage to do the drops on them, and they'll definitely do a lot of damage that way. But overall, the Independencia is a lot of fun to play. You can farm fires, you can farm torpedo damage. Overall, it's just fantastic. If you enjoy aircraft carriers, then I think you're definitely going to enjoy the Independencia. But yeah, I think it's great. I think it's tons of fun to play. If you like carriers, then yeah, you're definitely going to like this one. The original concept of it included a combat instruction, which allowed you to get your torpedo bombers back quicker. But I like the way they did this. It makes it where you're more rewarded for really high CV skill level gameplay, where if you lose your torpedo bombers, you're going to be doing way less damage overall. So you're rewarded for keeping them alive and for keeping your first squadron alive of attack fighters alive. And you're able to do that, you'll do really well. It's kind of compared to like Saipan, right? Where Saipan can be played well if it's a really high skill level player, but it's the same thing with Independencia. If you're a really high skill level player, you'll do really well in this thing. But if you're not going to do very well in this thing. So let's go over and talk about the ship itself and the build that I have for this ship. So here is the Independencia in port. Here is the ship here, as you can see. It does have American aircraft on it. That's why it has the tiny Tims. But yes, here are the American aircraft. There is the carrier. Those look very good indeed. Very nice, very nice. All right, so this thing has 56,000 HP. Very squishy. Armor-wise, 30 millimeters. It's very easy to kill. Not tanky at all. So essentially, it's like a glass cannon. It has very, very high DPM. But very squishy. So very easy to kill this carrier. It does have good concealment, which allows it to be stealthy, but a carrier can still try to go after you. So let's look at the Citadel real quick on this thing. 19 millimeters armor. Citadel is a giant box right there. So there's like this one flag here. Yep. So dead center, 21 millimeters. So you definitely got to be careful there. And since it does, the torpedo protection is right there. You have to aim like a little bit, like maybe around here. You build a Citadel it. But yeah, definitely Citadel. Columbus will love this thing. You'll pin absolutely everywhere and melt it. So yeah. 26 knot speed, not the fastest. Turning radius 950, and then rudder speed is 10.7. So it can turn pretty tight. It does not get any secondaries. Anti-air is pretty much none to speak of. So yeah, very squishy but very, very easy to kill as well by aircraft or anything really. And it's also has very, very high DPM. It's one of the highest DPMs out of the tier 10 carriers. So if you want a raw DPM farm machine out of a ship, then I definitely recommend the Independencia. All right, so let's go over to the build. So the first slot's going to be air group modification to get your squads back faster. Aircraft engine modification 1 is to get an extra long engine duration, which is really nice. Torpedo bomber attack speed, very important to build in torpedoes. Health of torpedoes is very important as well. Flight control modification, get your planes back. It makes it where you get extra squadrons or extra aircraft for your ship, which is very important, as well as make you have preparation time faster for preparing planes. So that includes all three. So very important with that. Flight control makes your squadrons faster. If you want to do air group modification instead, you can, which will make your torpedo bombers even more tanky, because you do need to make them really tanky. You can do that, but I like this one to make them faster. So I like that one more. For the build itself, I build a lot into the engines. So let's just go over the order that I would do the ship here. So we have last gap, the last squadron. You have completely restores the engine. Improved engine is squadron engine boost duration. You have the enhancement, which here is the engine techie, which makes your cooldown faster for the engines. And then you have air supremacy, which makes your preparation time faster for your aircraft. So for your first skill, it's going to be air supremacy. Makes it where you're able to get your planes back faster from building them or their cooldown. So for like the attack aircraft here, the ones that are the special squadron, you'll get those back faster. So I'll definitely recommend this one first for the first slot. After that, it'll be torpedo bombers, which makes your torpedo arming distance shorter. It makes it easier for you to aim and make sure you do torpedo hits onto your targets. Since the torpedoes are slower at 35 knots, you do want to make sure it's pretty close so the enemies don't have time to dodge. So I think the 10% is very important as your second skill. So this is going to be your 3-point build. After that, you can either build here or you can build for tankiness. So overall, I would say I would build into the aircraft armor first. So this will be your 6-point build. After that, it's going to be proximity fuse, so your torpedo protection. Proximity fuse makes it where your torpedoes do more damage. It's very important to build into this. So and this will be your 10-point build. After that, you can either build site stabilization next. So this will be your 13-point build. And then after that, survivability expert. It depends on what you want to do first. You can do survivability expert to have extra HP on your planes, or you can do sight stabilization for more accurate hits. So this makes it the aiming faster. So as you see the reticle getting smaller, it makes that 7.5% faster. So I would recommend having your planes tankier faster. So that's going to be 13-point build. And then the sight stabilization is going to be your 16-point. After that, it's going to be the improved engines, which makes your squadrons 2.5% faster. So that's going to be your 18-point. And then after that, it's going to be the engine techie. So this is going to be your 19-point. Then after that, it's going to be the 20-point build. It's going to be improved engine boost. And the final one, last gap, is going to be your 21-point build here. One last thing on the Independencia. This version of Independencia is not the final version. They did make changes to the torpedo bomber max speed. So as you can see here, it's 179 knots, right, for the max speed of the torpedo bombers. But they did change the stats of them from being the maximum being 166 base to 154 base. So the max speed of these torpedoes are going to be 167 knots theoretically in the end. So that's the only change they did for the Independencia. All right, so that is all of the reviews of all three ships. We went over the Yimeng, we went over the Messina, and then we went over the Independencia. So let's go over all three and talk about how to get these ships, which is something that I'm not the happiest with, but they did give us good news about that though. So overall, I've been asking for a bit how to get these ships. So I've been like, all right, well, how are you supposed to get these ships? All right. So how to get these ships is you're only able to get them from containers, which I'm not very happy about. And how to get these containers is from the Lunar New Year event, and it's through, of course, buying the Defenders of Order container or the Adherents of Chaos container, right? And for each of these containers, it costs about $2 each. And for 20, it costs 36, and 100 containers cost $160. You can also buy them with doubloons as well, with the containers being 500 doubloons for 1, 9,000 for 20, and then 40,000 for 100. Now, these ships are not in those containers. They're in the containers inside of the containers, which are in the Nin's treasure containers that themselves contain the ships. Now, you are able to get ships that are, and they're only available in those treasure of Nin's containers, so you're only able to get those from those two main containers, right? So you're able to get the Taiyang, the Schroeder, the Atlantico, the Yimeng, sorry, the Messina, and the Independencia in those, and you have an 8% to get them from these containers. So I'm not very happy about this, but before everyone starts freaking out, you're able to get these ships at the end of the year like you did with the Valve. So they didn't say what for yet, but they said the event to get these three ships are going to be very similar on how people got the Valve. So like how the Valve was in the Steel Will event, there's going to be an event that's similar coming at the end of this year that you're able to get these three ships. Now, you are probably going to be able to get some of these containers for free from the Battle Pass, right? Or other stuff, which I'll be going over on Wednesday. I'll have a video on Wednesday about the patch. I'll be talking about this again a little bit there, but you're only able to get these three ships from containers. I didn't want to talk about this at the beginning of the video because I know how everyone's going to be, and I was trying to be more positive on the ships themselves. I think the ships overall are great, right? And I think they're cool. I'm not, however, happy about these three ships being only available in containers inside of containers. I don't like the gambling aspect of it. Me and other CCs gave feedback about them trying to make it where, like, is like, hey, I know how the community is going to be. If there's copies of ships inside of containers, I don't really mind that. But if you have these fresh new ships behind the gambling aspect like that, like, yeah, it's not going to look good and people aren't going to be very happy about it. So overall, I'm not very happy about how to get these ships. I don't recommend getting them now. I recommend getting them at the end of the year during the different event where you're going to be able to get them like you did the Val. So overall, I like the ships. I like all three of them. I think they're great. But for now, you can get other ships that are similar to these that are in the game. Like for the Messina, you can get the Gonzaga that's available for the balloons right now. That's a really good a ship that's very similar in playstyle. The Gonzaga is a very similar playstyle to this ship. So if you want a ship now, you can get the Gonzaga instead for about 18,000 doubloons. The Yimeng, there's no other ship that has the special torpedo defense. So the only other thing you can really buy right now, like in the armory, let me go take a look real quick. Like in the armory right now, what could you get that's very similar playstyle? Let's see. What could you buy? Very similar playstyle. I don't think there is one that has a similar playstyle that you can get at the moment. Similar tanking, bow tanking, like Navarin. Navarin can do bow tanking. Like, yeah, it's similar. It doesn't have the super long heel, but yeah, you can buy that. That would do a very similar job to it, so that would work. For the aircraft carrier, I don't think there really is anything that you can buy that's an aircraft carrier that does what that thing does. Oh, wait, no, Chakalov. Chakalov could be a good one for raw DPM damage. Chakalov would be a pretty good CV to buy, but it is a tier 8, right? So you're not going to do that, unfortunately. But overall, I love the ships, but I'm not happy with how to obtain them. But I wanted to try to keep the video a little more positive about the ships themselves and not the way to get them. But of course, I'm still going to talk about how to get them, and I'm going to tell you guys that I do not think it's worth gambling for these, because the amount of money you have to spend to get them is because those ships aren't the only there's so like the percent chance is so low. Like you essentially just have to gamble for it, right? Like if you gamble, you gamble. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't, right? And that's just how it works. I'll be able to look more into it whenever the event actually comes out on Wednesday for NA. I'll have a video on Wednesday talking about the event overall and everything else in the patch. I'll be able to look more into it then. But as of right now, but yeah, if you guys want to leave feedback to Wargaming, you get in someone's like, hey, you guys should really have a way for people just to buy these things. That'd be great, because that's what the community really wants. People don't mind if there's a gambling way to get ships, as long as you're able to buy the ships outright for something else. It's something that they've always, they over time, they've adjusted it and they've done it over time. So it's a little bit sad to see them go back to where it's only gambling only for these ships, but with community feedback, hopefully they'll not revert it, but they'll make some changes for the future, because they do listen to the community. They've been a lot better than over the years. So giving constructive feedback and not just yelling at them, they'll listen a lot more rather than just yelling at them. Okay, so that's what I'm doing, and I think that anyone that is against this type of stuff, make sure to leave it in like, not the comments, but make sure to leave feedback to them about it, about how it's not right of them. It like if they want people to spend money, they should just have it where people can buy it outright, and that's where I'm gonna put it. But yeah, that's gonna be the end of today's video. If you guys have any questions or concerns, let me leave the comments down below. But this is Overlord Bo, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Deuces.